Hi, everybody. Good evening. It's working, right? Mike's working. You hear me? Fantastic. Um, the question you might ask is, how did we pick this topic for tonight? What does it have anything to do with anything? And the answer is, there are so many of you who are so loyal to me, hi ladies, who have heard me speak so many times that I struggled when I emailed Hadassah to say, find a shir they haven't heard yet. So this one, I do not believe you've heard. I haven't given it in quite some time. Don't worry, I fixed it up. But I promise this group that I will spend the summer writing lots more stuff, so it'll be no problem in the future. But anyway, I thought it would be a nice idea to talk about justice. You know, we normally think about God as a very just God. And God, at the end of the day, hopefully, does things that we feel are correct at the end. And therefore, in Tanakh, when we look for themes, we like to see that bad guys, bad things happen to them, and good guys, good things happen to them. And if you think about it, it normally does end up that way. I'll just give you a few examples. Cain, who murders his brother, right, thinking he's going to inherit the world. But of course he doesn't, because another brother is born. He ends up being punished. He has to wander. He can't settle. And his own descendants actually murder him. Lot loses everything. He chooses Sodom because it's richer. Sodom gets destroyed, and he gets raped by his own daughters. It's a terrible ending to his story. Esav loses the rights to the Bechorah, to the oldest. In the Midrash, his head gets cut off by either Dan or Yehuda, depending on which version, rolls into the Maras HaMachpelah. Such a funny ending to the Esav story. But if you think about it, there's so many, right, that we may be even less familiar with. Korach, Datan v'Aviram, the ground opens up and swallows them whole. Bilam, who tries to curse us, ends up being murdered when we fight against the war of Midian. Some people that are a little more entertaining from Navi, from the prophets, Avimelech, who's this really evil guy who kills out 69 of his brothers and anoints himself as king. That's pretty bad. I love his ending, because his ending is a woman throws a rock and hits him in the head, and he turns to his servant and says, kill me, because I don't want them to know throughout history that a woman killed me. But guess what? We all know. It's kind of funny. Or Izebel, we have to do one evil lady, right? Izebel, the evil queen, who wanted to kill all the prophets, and at the end, and her body is eaten by dogs. So justice, we feel sometimes. And that's true also in terms of good guys. Good guys should get good things. So Noah, who is the only Ish Sadiq, the only good person alive in the world, he gets to survive the flood. That makes sense to me. Or Avram, though he goes through a lot of hard times, we call it the 10 tests, at the very end of his life, he ends up with 8 children, and the Pasuk even says, Hashem berachat Avram bakol. He gets everything at the end. Things are good for him at the end. If you think about, let's go to Navi, some more unfamiliar characters. Yiftach, who's one of our judges, he's kicked out of his home by his brothers. He's meant to wander in the desert. At the end, he becomes the leader and saves the Jewish people. Even Shimshon, I see the justice, kind of strange. He's a character, right, that kills a lot of Plishtim. They capture him, they poke out his eyes, they're making fun of him. The end of the story, he pulls the building down and kills them all. Justice, right? We feel, he dies too, so it's not the best ending, but, justice at the end of that story. Another thing we believe in when we read through Torah is that, let's say you have a good guy, and a good guy does something wrong, he should be punished, right? Just because you're a good guy doesn't mean God doesn't have to punish you for your actions. And if you think about the most famous one, which is, of course, David HaMelech, who, no offense, really messes up when he sleeps with a married woman, gets her pregnant, and then has her husband killed. And there's no way to, read through the Psukim without realizing God punishes him. That baby that she's pregnant with dies. His sons, is there too much static? Are we all right? Yes. What? His sons, right, one ends up raping his daughter, a different son kills another son. I mean, he's clearly punished for what he's done. Moshe Rabbeinu, which we might come back to a little bit today, right, I don't even know what he did, because nobody knows. I'm teaching a course on this in school. It's taken us now like 2 months, and we still have no clue what Moshe did wrong. But he did something wrong. God's mad at him for something. Hit a rock, said something wrong. I'm not entirely sure. He doesn't get to go into Eretz Yisrael. And even you have people like Avram Avinu, who the Midrash tells us, is punished for just saying, God, how do I know I'm going to inherit? I don't have any children. Says the Midrash that Galus Mitzrayim is decreed from that. We think that when people do something wrong, they get punished. And that's, of course, what leads me to the question. Because I think we will all agree, if I said to you, where do you put Aaron? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? You're all going to say he's a great guy, right? Aaron is awesome. Aaron is wonderful. But here's what I don't understand. Aaron is involved in a terrible, terrible sin. The sin of the golden calf, right? Chet ha'egel. And all the people that are involved in this sin are wiped off the face of the earth. They all die. Aaron, he didn't die. Not only did he not die, he doesn't seem to be punished at all. Nothing happens to Aaron. Is this bothering people? I can use the other mic.
He doesn't get to go into Eretz Yisrael.
Well, hold on. That's not from Chet ha'egel. Not necessarily so.
Yeah, 2 sons that got killed.
Wow, thank you. You want to give the share? Come on. Come on up. Give the share. Okay.
Well, he
But
didn't want to be involved. He just was trying to.
Good. Good. Any more?
Did you turn that one on?
I got it.
Right.
Anybody else?
That's not going to be you.
Okay, great. So let's do each of these answers, but we have to put it all together. Right after Chet ha'egel, nothing actually is said to Aaron. Aaron is not punished at all. He walks away from the story completely with nothing going on. Even though if you look at source number 1, he is... Oh, that's later. That's by Nadav. Even though later, if you look at the story in source number 1, Moshe says to Aaron, he blames him. What did the nation do to you that you brought upon him such a terrible, terrible sin? God blames him. Source number 2. He plagues all the people, Asher asu et ha'egel, Asher asa Aaron. That Aaron made. He's clearly blamed. But again, the people all die in a plague. Moshe screams at them, makes them drink some crazy drink, right? Nothing of that happens to Aaron. Not only that, source number 3, Moshe even says, by the way, God was really mad at Aaron and wanted to kill him, but it actually doesn't happen. He doesn't kill him in this point in the story. So I don't even understand. And not only does he not seem to be punished, right? He becomes the Kohen Gadol. He gets a promotion. He gets like the biggest boost of a job ever. Now, if you look at source number 4, it tells us that he's chosen in Shemo Parachav Chet. V'ata hakrev alech et Aaron achicha v'et banav ito mitoch bnei Yisrael lekano li. Pick Aaron and his sons particularly, right, in particular, to be the Kohanim, and he's going to be the Kohen Gadol. Now, if I look at Rashi in source number 5, Rashi says, which to me blows my mind, that the entire discussion of the Mishkan is out of order. If you look at Rashi's source 5, Ein mukdam l'char Torah, there's no order in the Torah. Masa ha'egel kodem l'tzivoy melechas ha'mishkan, yamim rabim haya. It happens to be that Egel happened, and then to fix whatever went wrong in the Egel, God said, okay, make a Mishkan. Which means that the choosing of Aaron to be the Kohen Gadol, according to Rashi, happened after Chet ha'egel. And if this is true, the person who, yes, may not have done all the same things, and we're going to analyze all the stuff in my promise, we have a long night ahead of us, okay? But he not only isn't punished, but he seems to then get promoted to being the Kohen Gadol, according to Rashi's view. According to the view of everybody else, including the Ramban that I gave you in source number 6, no, we take the psukim in order. Which means the Mishkan was already commanded before Chet ha'egel, right? Chet ha'egel is in Parak Lamed Bet, chapter 32. It was already commanded, okay? And therefore Aaron was already chosen. Chet ha'egel happened after, says the Ramban, it's in order. But still, according to this view, normally you would think that if somebody does something as terrible as build an egel and let the people worship it under his watch, you'd think he would get demoted, right? Okay, Aaron, maybe we're not going to kill you, but maybe we're going to say you no longer can be the Kohen Gadol. We're going to give this job to somebody else. But not only does he not get demoted, in source number 7, which is for sure a later story after Chet ha'egel, source number 7, which is the story of the Korach story, when the people are complaining, why is Aaron the Kohen Gadol? We want to be the Kohen Gadol. God clearly chooses Aaron because he gives him his stick. And source number 7, Hine parach mata Aaron, there's a miracle, and flowers start growing out of the stick of Aaron. So clearly God is saying, this is the right job, this is the right man for the job. But my question that I don't understand is, why? Where's the justice? He was part of this humongous sin, and all we're seeing so far is that he's getting promoted, or if he was already promoted, he gets to keep his job. Most of the time, when people do something tremendously wrong, they get fired from their job. They don't get to keep it. So first thing I want to do, as was pointed out by somebody over here, which is let's look at the psukim themselves and actually see what Aaron did in the story of Chet HaEgel. We're clearly going to see what he did is different than what the people did, but the question is, how much are we going to blame him? So if you look at source number 8, which is Shmos Lamed Bet, it's the story of Chet HaEgel. And we start to read the psukim. I'm just going to point out to you what Aaron is doing versus the people, and maybe even try to understand what Aaron is actually doing. This is very, very scary, right? Moshe is delayed. He's not coming down the mountain. You can understand that causes a ridiculous panic amongst the people, including Aaron. Aaron, who's left in charge, is saying, where is my brother? What is about to happen? I don't understand why he's not coming down the mountain. Vayikahel amal Aaron. They attack Aaron. They gather on Aaron. They bully on him. They say, Aaron, we have a problem. Vayomru alav, kum aseh lanu Elohim asher yahu lefanenu. Make for us a God to go in front of us. Ki zeh Moshe ha'ish asher lanu me'eretz Mitzrayim lo yadanu ma hayalo. This guy Moshe, we don't know where he is. We don't know what to do. So clearly what we see from the first pasuk is the people come to Aaron. He doesn't gather them. They come to him. And they have the idea, it is not Aaron's idea, to make some sort of form of God to some extent because they don't know where Moshe is and they are panicking. Next pasuk, Vayomer aleim Aaron. So Aaron responds. But he doesn't say what you might have expected, which is, no, that's a terrible idea. Let's wait for Moshe. Or, no, we should not make a god. We have a God. He doesn't say anything like that. What does he say? Parku nizmei hazav asher ba'aznei nishechem u'benechem u'benotechem aviu elai. He does a different plan, which is a delay tactic. Okay, you want to make a god? Sure. Go get the jewelry from your wives. They're never going to give it to you. And your children. They're going to say, go away, Dad. And therefore, in his mind, I'm pushing you off. Next pasuk doesn't work out in his way because Vayitparku kol ha'ametz nizmei hazav asher baznehem. What did the men do? They take their own jewelry. They say, you're right, I can't get it for my wife, I can't get it for my kids. I'm going to take my own jewelry. So, here I am, Aaron, I'm back with the jewelry. Much quicker, they seem to do. They seem to. Vayaviu al Aaron, and they bring it to Aaron. So now Aaron's stuck because he thought, great, we'll just wait a little bit. I'll give a little delay. What's obviously he's thinking is going to happen before they come back to the jewelry? Moshe's going to come down. His problems will be solved. Didn't happen. Moshe's not there. They brought him the jewelry. See what he does. Pasuk Dalet. Vayikach miyadam, he takes it. He's kind of stuck now. It was his idea. Vayetzar oto b'cher. This is in singular. He's clearly fashioning it, engraving it with a graving tool. What do you think he's doing? Making it as slow as he possibly can. He's probably making it very beautiful with nice engraving. I mean, he is trying his best to push this off. And then we have a problem. Moshe's still not there. Vayaseu egel masecha. He's done. Uh-oh, now he's in trouble. So they say, Vayomru, Ela Elohecha Yisrael asher alucha me'eretz Mitzrayim. They start claiming this is their God. It is clear it's them who is talking, not Aaron. He's not involved in that statement. Pasuk Hey. Vayar Aaron vayuven mizbeach lefanav. Aaron sees. What does he see? He sees, oh my gosh, this is happening, and Moshe's still not here, and I'm panicking, and I haven't fixed the problem. So now he built a mizbeach. What do you think he does by building the mizbeach by himself? Again, as slow as he possibly. I'm sure he picked up every stone really slowly to build that mizbeach. He's just like, where is he? Why is Moshe not coming down? And he's like praying, right? Something's going to happen. And then he says, when the mizbeach is built and now we're in trouble, Vayikra Aaron vayomer chag l'Hashem machar. Two things. One, let's do this tomorrow, guys. Let's sleep on it. He'll come, right? But he also changes the language. They keep using the language Elohim, right? God. Let's call this thing a God. And he says, let's make a party tomorrow, La Hashem. He's trying to push them and say, no, guys, this is not your God. Hashem. Hashem is the one we worship. However, sadly, Moshe still does not come down, Pasuk Vav. They wake up the next morning and they give korbanot and they worship or whatever it is that they do to this Egel. It is clear in Pasuk Vav, Aaron is not involved. So when it's very unclear. It could be a full day or two. I mean, I don't think it's that much longer. I don't know how long it takes to engrave an Egel and how talented Aaron was, all things we don't know. So it is clear to me that Aaron did something wrong here. He is somewhat to blame, which again, as God seems to imply, where again, Pasuk Lamed Hey, which I read you before, Asher Asa Aron. He made the egel. That's what we're blaming him for. He made the egel. Did he worship the egel? No. Was it his idea to make the egel? No. Did he even try to encourage them not to worship the egel? Seemingly so. But you could argue, why wasn't he stronger? Why didn't he say, no, guys, this is wrong? Why didn't he step up as a leader in that moment and stop them from the sin? So along comes Chazal to try to fix this problem for us because they don't like that we're getting so mad at Aaron. So they come up with an interesting solution. And at the same time, they solve another question, which is a mystery within the text. If you look at source number 9, there's a second character who seems to disappear. And it's a really strange thing that he disappears in the text. If you look at source number 9, there's a man by the name of Hor. Hor, okay, was the son of Kaleb. Kaleb, we know, one of the spies. His son Hor has two stories about him. In Shemot Yadzayin, this is the war against Amalek, right? We're fighting against Amalek, the first enemy to attack us when we leave Mitzrayim. And Moshe stands on the top, Yeshua's fighting on the bottom, we all know the story. And Aaron's holding up one hand, and who's holding up the other side? Hor, right? So that's source number 9. Moshe, Aaron, V'Hor, Alu Rosh HaKedah, they go to the top of the mountain. Hor seems to have a leadership position. The second pasuk I gave you in source number 9, the second story of Hor. Moshe's going up on Har Sinai. Yoshua's joining him at least part of the way to the mountain. So who does he leave in charge? And he says, Hinei Aaron v'Hor imachem. Guess what? You have two people who are in charge, Aaron and Hor. Mibal davar nigash alehem. If you have a problem, go to them. Our story of Chet Egel, they go to Aaron. We have no mention of Hor. And the question is, where did Hor go? And not only is he not mentioned by Chet Egel, he's not mentioned ever again. He's gone. So he could be gone because he did nothing, so there's nothing to say. Or comes along Chazal to answer our question, where is Hor? To answer our question at the same time, why did Aaron not scream at them and say no? And comes up with a very beautiful response. Source number 10. Remember I said to you before, this pasuk, Vayar Aaron, he sees. And I was envisioning, what does he see? He sees that the people are still doing this and Moshe still hasn't come and he's in trouble. Comes Chazal and says, it's a weird phrase, Vayar Aaron, but it doesn't really tell us what he sees. Comes Rashi quoting a famous midrash. The Medrash of Rabbah says, Devarim harbe Aaron. He saw lots of things, but here's one thing he saw. Ra'a Hor ben Achoto. He saw Hor, which according to the Midrash is his nephew, so it's even closer. Why is that? Because Chazal assumed that Kaleb married Miriam, his sister, and therefore Hor is his nephew, okay? Which is not clear necessarily in the Psukim, but that's a nice idea that we have in the Midrash, and therefore they're all related. So this is his nephew, Shehaya Mochicham. This is not in the Psukim, but he came out there and he said, no guys, no Cheta Ega, what are you doing? V'harguhu, and they killed him. So what's Chazal doing in this midrash, besides trying to tell us why Hor disappeared, because he's dead, that's why he's gone, but giving us an answer to my really big question about Aaron, which is, why didn't you say no? So Chazal just gave us an answer. He didn't say no, because he saw that the guy before him who said no got murdered. So what help is that? If they kill Hor and Aaron, then they're going to worship the Egel, and there's nothing he could do. But if he's alive, he could try to delay, he could try another tactic, and maybe that's why Aaron didn't say no. So certainly we can look through the eyes of Chazal and understand Aaron a little bit. Or I could take this Chazal and twist it to make Aaron not look so good. Here we have two leaders. One has the strength to get up and say no, and one doesn't. One's a little bit too passive. So, okay, I'll help you out. I'll pretend I'm on your side. I don't know which one Chazal believes is the greater leader in this story. So to help me continue, I gave you a very fascinating parallel story in source number 11. There's a story that is so similar to Chet Egel in Navi, which is really fascinating to compare the two, and I put them for you side by side so you can do a better job if you want after Shir. I give you a little homework here. These two stories, okay? There's a story about a man by the name of Gideon, who's one of our shoftim, he's one of our judges. At the end of the battle against Midian, he's won the battle. He's done a good job. In the beginning, he's kind of shaky, but by the end, he's won the battle and everybody likes him. So the people come over to him, and I'm in the column in Shoftim Chet, and they say to him, Mashal Banu, rule us, please. Please be our leader. Not just you, but your children after. It even sounds like they're asking to be king to some extent, right? We want to have monarchy. And I think there's a similarity to what they're saying to Aaron. They're saying, Moshe's gone, and I'm stuck. We don't know what to do. So they ask him for a new leader. Are they asking for a replacement of God? They're asking for someone to help them to talk to God like Moshe did? A little bit unclear. But these two stories begin with a request of, our leader is gone, we have no leader, and we need something else instead. Gideon, in his story, says no. He answers, I will not rule you, Pasach of Gimel. I will not rule you, my children will not rule you, God rules you. He says no to their request. But then what does he ask of them? Please, he says where I bolded, Tenuli ish nezem shalo ki nizmei zahav lahem, give me your jewelry. So he collects all of their jewelry, just like Aaron does. And then he fashions through their jewelry. If you look at Pasach of Zayin, Vayasato Gideon, ephod. He makes an ephod, an apron, representing the ephod of the Kohen Gadol, which Aaron wore. The stories are very late. And he makes this ephod, and then what does he do? He hangs it up, and the next thing we see, Vayiznu kol Yisrael acharav, the people start worshiping it as avodah zarah. Here we have two leaders that seem to be good leaders, both of them, Aaron and Gideon, who collect jewelry, create something, and that something then becomes something that we worship and we are blamed for and we are punished for. And in that story, I figured, let's look at it a little bit better. Why did Gideon do that? And maybe I can help myself understand Aaron better by looking at Gideon, because the stories seem to be so similar. And if you look at the Mefarshim there in source number 12, Radak and Rabad say he did it for a good reason. He really had good intentions, which we could say about Aaron too. He had good intentions. What were Gideon's intentions? If you look where I bolded on source 12, שיהיה לזיכרון התשועה הגדולה והוא עשה אותה לטובה. He meant it for good. He said, wow, we just had this great victory, and I want you to appreciate God. I want to make like a monument. I want to make something you could look at and remember. Wow, what God did for us, that's amazing. Or Rabak says, it's something for me to look at to remember the miracle God did for me. It was done for the right reason. It's kind of like Aaron saying, we'll have a party for God tomorrow, but I'll make you something maybe that represents all the amazing things God has done. Or the Das Mikra, which is interesting in source 13. Gideon made it, she made machshir ledrosh alakim. Right, what's our problem? We can't communicate with God. God doesn't talk to us. We don't have prophets. Gideon is not a prophet. And therefore he says, let me make an ephod, and we know through the ephod God can communicate with us. He was trying to find a way to communicate. Similarly, what we see in Chet HaEgel, the people wanted a way to talk to God because Moshe seemed to be missing. In both of these stories, we can look at it as certainly a problem that Gideon and Aaron made these things, which caused us to worship them and sin in such a terrible way. But on the other hand, from Gideon, I also see that I can look at it from the perspective of they were trying to do something good. They were trying to kind of push the Jewish people in the right direction, but it just ended up falling flat for them. He did say, Chag LaHashem Lacha. So therefore, when I look at the story, I certainly conclude Aaron did not deserve the punishment of the people who worship the Egel. That's without question. I believe that. He had good intentions. He was trying to delay them. He didn't want them to sin. He didn't maybe even know they would serve it at the end. He didn't serve it himself. There are so many reasons to say he shouldn't have gotten that punishment. But it's very hard for me to understand why he seems to get no punishment at all after the story of Chet HaEgel. And I started to search, as many of you were throwing out stories to me. But as I'm starting to search, I actually found another story that makes my question even stronger. Which is, I have a story about another mess-up of Aaron. And that is, fast forward now to Bamidbar Yud Bet, which should be your source 14. Where there's a story about Aaron and Miriam speaking Lashon Hara about Moshe. And if you look at the very end of the story, which is in Pasuk Yud, where I underlined and bolded for you, they both seem to speak Lashon Hara, but the end is, Vayif and Aaron el Miriam, he looks at his sister, B'nei Saras, she has Saras. She has to leave the Machaneh for 7 days. He has nothing. Nothing at all. He doesn't seem to get punished again. Another time he's involved in a sin, and Aaron gets away scot-free. I don't understand. What is it about Aaron? So let me look at this story a little bit deeper. If I look now, starting from the beginning of source 14, it seems to be very true from the text. She is the instigator. She certainly did more than him, like in the story of Chet HaEgel. If you look at the words, Vatidaber Miriam va'Aaron b'Moshe. Very strange. It should say, Vayidabru Aaron v'Miriam b'Moshe. A bunch of things are off. Number one, it's in singular. and it's in feminine form. And we all know that when you have a man and a woman together, it should be in masculine form, plural. Here it is in singular form, female. I gave you another example of this in source 15, a very famous one, where Shem and Yafet are covering their naked, drunk father, Noah. Ham laughs at him, and they come in and they cover him. And the pasuk there says, source 15, I'll come back to 14 in a minute, Vayikach Shem v'Yafet. It should have said, Vayikchu, right? Shem and Yafet took. Not one of them took, it's in singular. Comes along Rashi and all the Mefarshim to tell us, why is it not in plural? Ein ketiv kan v'Yikchu ela Vayikach, lamad Shem shenitamitz b'mitzvah yoter miyafet. To teach me, Shem was the instigator. He was the one that did it much more than Yafet. What's my proof? Next pasuk I gave you. When Noah wakes up from his stupor and he gives them all their blessings and their cursings, he blesses Shem first. But not only does he bless him first, Baruch Hashem Elokei Shem, Yafet's in the next pasuk, but he says, Vayiknan Eved Lamo, Canan's going to be the Eved of Shem. Why isn't Canan the Eved of both? Shem's getting the greater bracha, because he knows Shem was the instigator. So now I know that if a verb is in singular, even though I have two people doing the action, it's telling me the first person is the one who started it and did it to a fuller extent much more than the first. Great. So I have a hint that Miriam was the one who at least began the talking and started this Lashon Hara story. Still doesn't tell me why Aaron isn't punished at all, but I understand why she should be punished for that. Not only that, just to prove this a little further, if you look at Pasuk Daled and Pasuk Hey, you see that when we're listing the names Aaron and Miriam, Aaron's name always comes before Miriam. And that's true because normally we put the more significant person first. But if I look back at that first pasuk, whose name is first? Miriam. Because clearly the pasuk is trying to tell me she is the instigator. But to say he wasn't involved is impossible. Because now look at pasuk Ben. Pasuk Ben, Vayomru. There it is. It's in plural. They said. Not only that, when they're talking, Harakach b'Moshe diber Hashem halo gam banu. Also us. Clearly, both of them are talking. Not only that, skip forward to pasuk Tet. Vayichar af Hashem bam. Hashem is mad at both of them. Not just Miriam, mad at them both. He yells at them both. He calls both of them into the Ohel Moed, calling Aaron before Miriam. And of course, the very end of the story, pasuk Yud Aleph, Aaron admits he did something wrong. He says to Moshe, please don't blame us. Al na taseh aleinu chatas asher na'alnu, asher chatanu. We both messed up. Forgive us both. So clearly Aaron did something wrong. So there's two different ways to look at it. Either Miriam starts the conversation and Aaron joins in the second pasuk, or maybe she was talking the entire time, but he gets blamed in the second pasuk as if he spoke, because we all know the phrase shtika kol da'adami. If you're sitting there and someone's saying something and you're nodding and you're saying yeah, it's as if you said it too. So the pasuk is giving him credit for as if he said it. But again, I would understand maybe if his punishment is a little bit lower level than hers. But to get nothing, he turns. She has saras. She gets sent away for 7 days. He doesn't. Nothing happens to Aaron. What is it about Aaron that he seems not to get punished? That's my question. And I would like to answer this in two very different ways. One, which many of you are already giving me suggestions, and we're going to visit all of those suggestions, which is, yes, he is punished. We just have to look a little deeper within his stories to find the punishment. The second way we're going to answer is to say, you're right, he isn't punished. And I have to understand, what is it about him that he gets spared from being punished? Two different ways we're going to answer it. Let's go to option one. Yes, he is punished. So I'm trying to look through the psukim to try to figure out where can I see a punishment to Aaron. And there's a bunch of options that are going to play out. The first thing that I notice is that what is the theme of Aaron's two sins? What did he do wrong in both places, right? In both places, there's a passivity to Aaron. He doesn't step up and say, stop doing what you're doing. Miriam, stop saying what you're saying. But he kind of lets the people do what they're going to do. He tries to stop them in a much more subtle way. I'll delay you. I'll push you off. But I'm a very passive type of person instead of actively saying, don't do that. Right? That's the issue that we're finding with Aaron. The second thing we know about Aaron, source 16, a very famous line that we all know from the Mishnah and Avos. Aaron was Ohev Shalom v'Rodev Shalom. He was someone who loved people. He was a people person, right? There's a lot of explanation on this Mishnah. He would try to make sure everybody was friends with each other. If you got into a fight, he would try to fix your fights, right? Aaron was a people person. He loved people. So if you think about these two things together, why is it possibly that he was so passive? Because he doesn't like to fight with people, right? So therefore, what do you have to do if you stand up to someone and say, don't do that? You're fighting with them. You're saying, don't do that action that you're doing. You have to stand up to them, which is a little bit hard for Aaron because that's not his personality. He's much more passive. He kind of doesn't want to get in your face at all. And therefore, maybe one could argue the punishment of Aaron is actually in both stories. Before I go to other stories that you wanted to suggest, it's in the stories themselves. Because the punishment of Aaron is actually passively watching everybody else around him suffer because of him. Knowing, had I said something and stopped them, they would not be suffering right now. I'm watching with my own eyes. I'm suffering, watching all my friends being in trouble, getting punished because of me, and I didn't stop them. If you look at source number 16, the next pasuk in Shemot Lamed Bet, what happens after Chet HaEgel, right? Moshe calls out Mila Hashem Elai, and who of course joins him? Who's going to come and help to kill out all the people? B'nai Levi. This is the family of Aaron. The family of Aaron now goes, and the language is so horrible. Hirgu Ishet Achiv. One man is killing his own brother. Ishet Re'ehu, killing his friend. Ishet Kravo, killing his own relative. Vayasu B'nai Levi Kedvar Moshe. They did what they were told. Vayipol min ha'am bayomahu kishloshes alfei ish. Can you imagine? 3,000 people just died because you didn't have the strength to stand up and say, don't do that. And you have to live with that every day. He didn't deserve to die. He didn't worship the Egel, but he punished on that day. Not only that, I can take the same idea, and I can certainly understand now the story of Miriam. If you look back at source 14, the pasuk was a little bit strange in pasuk Yud. The anansar me'aha'oel. The pasuk then said, Hine Miriam mitzaras keshelek. Miriam had tzaras. Vayifen Aaron el Miriam vehine mitzaras. Aaron turned to Miriam, and she had saras. What a repetitive pasuk. It just said a second ago. She had saras. Aaron turns to Miriam, she has saras. Of course she still has saras. It doesn't go anywhere just because you're not looking at her, right? If something is there, even if you don't see it. I actually think you divide the pasuk in half. First half of the pasuk is her punishment. Second half of the pasuk, I hate to say it, is his punishment. First half of the pasuk is she got saras. That's true. She started the lashon hara. She instigated. She gets the saras. What's his punishment? He looks at his sister, and she's got saras. I did that. Right? I didn't stop her from saying that. I joined in maybe and helped her out there. I could have stopped this. I now have to suffer watching my sister suffer because what I didn't do. Answer number one is maybe the punishment to Aaron is that just like he kind of passively stands by, not stopping the people around him from sinning, he has to suffer watching them suffer. They die because of what he didn't stop them from doing. She gets saras from it. And again, if you're looking at source 14, I read these words already, you don't have to look back. When he cries to Moshe, he says, forgive us. We're both suffering. It's not forgive her, it's forgive us. We're both in on this together. I see your hand if it's quick, because if not, I was told only an hour.
You just left out that middle pasuk involved. Vayikra Aharon uMiriam vayetzu shnehem.
Yeah.
Here, it's Aaron's name is first, and it says in the singular, Aaron singular,
Right.
and Miriam, and they both left together.
Right, so that's early in the story. That has nothing to do with this. I did mention that pasuk, that Aaron's name is normally mentioned before Miriam, and they're in singular because, again, he is the focus of that pasuk. That's when God is telling them to go to the Oel Moed. That's not part of their punishment. That's not part of their action against Moshe. That's part of this, which is a different discussion and a different shir, how God is trying to teach them the lesson. Based on what they said, he's kind of symbolizing to them the answer, which is a different shir onto itself. But very good point. I would like to move to a second answer. And this answer, I haven't, somebody said it, which I don't know if you know. It's the famous Abarbanel who says this point, and you should know that because it's such an amazing idea, which is, I think it was Yuhadasa, which is the Abarbanel says, you're right. He doesn't look like he got punished for Chet HaEgel, but he absolutely was punished for Chet HaEgel. You know that story where Moshe hits a rock and nobody knows what he does wrong? Says Abarbanel, it's a fake out. He actually didn't do anything wrong there. He did a little thing wrong there. He really didn't do, and Aaron for sure did nothing wrong. What did he do? He didn't hit the rock. He wasn't even doing anything. Why is it that Aaron can't go into Eretz Yisrael? Why is it that Moshe can't go into Eretz Yisrael? It has nothing to do with Mei Mariva. It has really nothing to do with what happened in that story. That's a fake-out story. The reason why they can't go in is for things that they did much, much earlier. But it says about, and I'm going to read it to you in a second, we didn't want to tell them in the first years of their leadership, by the way, you're never going in, because what leader continues going, and what people follow a leader who they know is never going to take them where they need to go. So God was silent. But really, says Abarbanel, source 17, it's a genius answer. Moshe and Aaron not being allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael is a punishment for earlier sins that they did. We're going to focus on Aaron. Im Aaron Bavon Ha'egel. Why is Aaron not allowed into Eretz Yisrael? You're right. It's because of the Egel. Just like those people couldn't go in, they get killed. Aaron also gets the same punishment. It's not that he didn't get a punishment. It's just hidden within the text. Moshe Adonenu Inyan Hamaraglim. Moshe, it's about the spies. Another shir about the discussion of the spies. Lo haya Aaron me'ode ha'egel. Oh, we're not saying Aaron worshipped the Egel. We're not saying Moshe did what the Meraglim did, the spies did, that's wrong. For sure they didn't do that. He didn't do it with bad intentions, make the egel. Like we said, he was just trying to delay them, and to kind of lead them in a very calm, nice way. Until Moshe finally showed up. They didn't go the way he wanted, and bad things happened. Therefore, they are punished. They die in the midbar. They don't go into Eretz Yisrael. So too Aaron. That is his punishment for making the egel. 100%. It's not that he wasn't punished. He just didn't know that he was being punished at the time. But he finds out later. You were also being punished for the egel. Ha'amnam, he says, however. Since he didn't actually worship the egel, Kisharon Hashem, like the rest of them, Haposhim who sinned, God kind of let his mercy go for 40 years. And in the 40th year, though, Aaron is punished. And Aaron dies, and he cannot go into Eretz Yisrael. So answer number 2 is Aaron is absolutely punished. Aaron is punished by the exact same punishment as the people who worship the Egel. The only difference is they die immediately. He gets to live for another, 38 more years, right? And then he dies, just like they did, and he cannot go into Eretz Yisrael. 2 answers so far. He's punished by passively watching people suffer. Answer number 2, he is punished, he cannot go into Eretz Yisrael. But I want to keep going. There's a third answer, and somebody called it out. I don't know who you are. You can raise your hand if you want. It was you. You know. Nadav Avihu. It happens to be, if you go a little bit further within the text, there is a terrible, terrible story that happens to Aaron. In source 18, this is in Vayikra Yud, we are doing the Chanukas HaMishkan. We are so excited. We are bringing the Shekhinah, we're bringing God's presence into the Mishkan. Something very wrong happens. Nadav Avihu, which is Aaron's 2 oldest sons, do something wrong. Again, also another shir to figure out what exactly they do wrong. But some sort of Zara, a foreign fire that they are not supposed to do. And what happens? The fire comes out from the sky, kills them, Vayimutu lefnei Hashem, and they die. Now, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible event. And it, to me, parallels so interestingly another story that I gave you here in Source 17, which is the story of Eli the Kohen. Eli the Kohen has 2 sons who also die, Chafni and Pinchas. They also do something wrong in the Mishkan, which is a little bit what they do that's more like taking bribes and taking them they're not supposed to, and maybe people wait when they're not supposed to. And what does God say to Shmuel? It's not just their fault, it's your fault. Because, source 19, Lo ki haba. You didn't stop them. You didn't rebuke them. These are your kids. You're supposed to teach them how to act. And I wonder if you could put this back to Aaron. Aaron who's so passive. Aaron who maybe saw his sons were about to do something wrong, but doesn't stop them. And now the punishment for his entire persona of not stopping people from doing wrong things, comes to this terrible point where his sons are killed. And of course, famously, go back to source 18, what's the ending of that story? Vayidom Aharon. He is told he has to be quiet, continue the avodah, do not mourn for your sons, you have to keep going. What a horrible, horrible punishment for Aaron himself. But then it was interesting, and I went to a shir a few weeks ago, which I believe some of you were at, in the Yom Yun of YU. They had a Sunday shir, and Shani Tarragon was there, and she gave a beautiful shir on Vayikra. Anybody was at that shir? Anyway, so she said something that to me made this so much stronger. And she wasn't talking about this, but to me it triggered something. And I had wanted to fix the source sheets, but they were already made, so you're just going to forgive me for a minute. She pointed out that there's this fascinating Ramban, okay, which I would have added, but you can look it up yourself, which is, she said that really, according to the Ramban, the Mishkan is a continuation of Har Sinai, right? The Shechina came down from the Shamayim. The pasuk says, "Vayishkon kavod Hashem Har Sinai." The Shechina of God came down in Har Sinai, and then what happened that messed it all up? Chet HaEgel. And then now we're fixing Chet HaEgel. The Shechina is coming back down into the Mishkan. This time it's going to be permanent. Same language. Kavod Hashem Malet HaMishkan. And what happens when that happens? Nadav and Avihu are killed. Now it's interesting to me, that's as far as she went, but I was thinking about it from the perspective of Aaron, right? It's kind of like God had his big moment, and Aaron ruined it. Aaron ruined it, right? He ruined that moment by allowing the people to do Chet HaEgel. The second big moment, God ruins it for Aaron in a very bad way. I'm wondering if that connection makes this even stronger. Third possible punishment for Aaron. Let me move on to the fourth. There's a later story, which maybe even helps me understand the Miriam story too, and the Lashon Hara, which to me sounds like a very bad punishment to Korah. Because if you have a person who works his entire life to be a people person, I want everyone to like me. And I'm not going to tell you not to do the egel because I want you to like me. So I don't want to say that. I'm just going to say delay, right? And I don't want to tell my sister don't do that because I want everyone to like me, and I'm a very likable guy. To have a rebellion against your leadership, there is no insult that is greater than that. To have people, the people that you work so hard to be friends with and for them to love you, come over and make a rebellion that you're the wrong guy for the job, that is an insult that goes down to the core. And I wonder if the rebellion of Korah is in a lot of ways a punishment to Aaron for the things that he's done. And what's so sad about this rebellion, and it's actually so perfect to our understanding of Aaron, is he is completely passive. The people come and they're yelling about Aaron. Who answers? Moshe. Moshe comes up with the idea, give the Ketores. Nothing. Aaron is silent. I think he's in shock. I think he's in shell shock. I mean, these are the people that I've given my whole life for, and this is what they're doing to me. They're yelling at me. They're saying I shouldn't be the leader. And in so many ways, look at source 20. What happens to those people reminds me of what happens to his son, and I don't think that that's by accident. What happens? Again, 250 people die because of the rebellion of Aaron. People are dying around him again because of him. A fire comes out from the sky and kills them because they're giving a Torah that they're not supposed to give. And it's the same language of what just happened to his sons. Same language. They give a Ketoret. The fire, instead of eating the Ketoret, eats them. These people come to give a Ketoret, to rebel against Aaron. Fire comes down and eats them. If this is not something that's going to hurt Aaron and punish Aaron, I don't know what else will. And then what happens in the story, source 21, the only active thing Aaron does is to save them. You'd think if people are making rebellion against you, you would be kind of like, okay, whatever's about to happen to them, that's okay. Like, let God make justice here and defend me. What does he do? He runs into the middle of the kahal and takes the Ketoret and brings it down so that everybody will be forgiven and the plague will stop. All Aaron wants is for everyone to please stop dying because of him. You see the pain in Aaron. You see that he's so angry that this is what is being caused by him. This, I think, 100% can be looked at as a punishment to Aaron. I mean, he passively let things happen, and now here they go because he wants to be their friend, and they go and they turn against him. And again, People are dying because of Aaron. So if I take a look back again and I say Aaron isn't punished, well, maybe that's just not true. Aaron is punished because either he passively watches the people in those stories themselves die, in the Chet Egel story, or Miriam Hafsaras, or he is punished because he dies in the desert and doesn't get to go to Eretz Yisrael, or all these terrible other things that happen to him later on are all the same theme as what he's done by Chet Egel, happening again and again. He loses Nadav and Avihu, there's a rebellion against him, more people are dying, all because of him. But I also said a second statement, which now I want to go back on. I said in the beginning he wasn't punished, and I said not only was he not punished, he was promoted to Kohen Gadol, right? I said that. But now I want to question, is that really a promotion? Is that really a reward? Is that really something that I would say, wow, why did he get that job? Maybe it's the opposite. If you look at the language, every time we talk about the Kohen Gadol, the job of the Kohen Gadol, the job of the Kohanim, there's always a threat of death. Always. I gave you in source 22 when they're first chosen, and they are told, this is how you have to do it, velo yamut. And if you do it that way, you won't die. What does that imply? If you don't do it that way, you absolutely will die, right? And when we get to Vayikra Tet Zion, which I gave you in the next source, source 23, that's the biggest job of the Kohen Gadol, right? That's the position Aaron is chosen to do. That is doing the avodat of Yom HaKippur, right? The avodas Yom Kippurim, that is in this parah. So many times, I highlighted for you 3 times, it says, don't do this, because if you do, you will die. And if you do this, you will die. And only if you do it the right way, you will not die. And that's why, if you think about it, why do we sing Mara, Kohen, right? We're so excited to sing that. What are we singing? If he comes out and he didn't die. Because what are we expecting? He might die, right? He might die. That's not a great job, right? I don't think any of us would be like, if we're reading, a job description and it's like 50% chance you might die in this job, you probably walk away, right? Aaron is not given a choice. He's told he's going to be the Kohen Gadol. And I wonder to some extent if I don't look at it as a promotion, but I look at it as somewhat of a punishment to him, somewhat of a reaction to what he has done to the people in the story of Chet Egel. And you see it, the connection between that, hold on one second, and Nadav and Avihu, source 24, his sons don't do exactly what they're supposed to do, and they die. So clearly this is all connected. This is a dangerous job, not just for him, for his children, forevermore, generation. This is not a reward to some extent. And therefore maybe I could look at it as kind of a result, okay? A result of the Chet Egel. This is what you've done. We are now giving you a job that has the possibility to you to die, but it also has the possibility for you to be mitaking, to fix what you have done. Because what is the goal of the Kohen Gadol, source 24? V'chiper ba'ado ba'ad beito, to get forgiveness. You need forgiveness, Aaron. So your job, by definition, is going to be a job where your job is to get forgiveness. Not just for you, yes, for you and your house because you've done something wrong, but also for all of Klal Yisrael. You are responsible for Klal Yisrael. And to some extent, I think that really is a reaction to Chet Egel, because look at source 25. I had removed these psukim before, because this is the reaction of Aaron to Moshe. Right? We saw what Aaron did. We saw that Moshe gets mad. We saw that God gets mad. But we skipped the psukim where Aaron speaks. Look what he says, source 25. Moshe says to Aaron, what you do? How'd you bring this sin on the people? Vayomer Aaron, Ayacharaf Adoni, Ataya Data Ta'am Kivarahu. Don't be mad at me. Those are such bad people out there, right? It's not my fault. And then he goes on, Pasach of Gimel. They said to me, it's not my fault. They said, make a god. Moshe is gone, and we don't know what happened to him. Pasach of Dalet. And I said to them, give me your jewelry. And all I did was throw it in the fire. Vayitze Egel, and the eagle popped out. This is not really what the story is. What's he not taking? Responsibility. He's not taking responsibility for himself. He's not taking responsibility for what he caused the people to do. What is the number one job of the Kohen Gadol? Take responsibility for yourself. V'chiper ba'ado ba'ad beito. You have to say, I messed up. I did something wrong. I need kapara. I need forgiveness. I need atonement. And what is your job? To get atonement for everyone. Take responsibility for what you have done. So I wonder if to some extent, becoming the Kohen Gadol or the keeping of the job of the Kohen Gadol, whichever it was, is all part of this picture of his atonement for Chet HaEgel and what he did at Chet HaEgel. That's all possibility number one. He was punished. We have now found 5 different ways to claim that he was punished. But let's now move to the second possibility. He wasn't punished. Maybe Aaron wasn't punished. Well, why would that be true? What is it? We all wish we knew. What is the magical thing that if we do, we kind of get forgiven for everything else that we've done? And I look at Aaron and I really try to figure out what is it about Aaron. Now, I can take a hint from source 26, but I don't think it's strong enough. But Moshe does say this in Devarim. Which, by the way, it's nice to hear that somebody claims that God really did get very mad at Aaron. But I davened for him, it's all fine. I don't know, maybe that's the source to go into the Rebbe and everything is a tone, I don't know. But I don't think we believe that. I think we believe you need a lot more than just somebody praying on your behalf and you get forgiven, though if it's Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe it's okay. So I think it's more than that, but I had to throw that out. I think there's something about Aaron. And what do I mean? I go back to that Mishnah in Avos. And when I think about that Mishnah in Avos, that we all throw out, right? That Aaron was Ohev Shalom, V'Rotev Shalom, he was a person of peace. And then I question, where is that in the Psukim? Where did you see? There is no pasuk that says, and Aaron went up to one person and said, your friend is, you're mad at your friend. Oh, but your friend really feels bad, and he said, I'm sorry. There's no pasuk like that. There's no pasuk like that. So where is it? It's a medrash. But where does the medrash come from? Every medrash has to have a source within the psukim. Where does the medrash come from that there's something about Aaron that he's a man of peace? And I think the answer is really quite simple if you think about the story of the very beginning of what we hear about Aaron. The very first time that we hear about Aaron is Moshe is told by God at the sneh to go to Mitzrayim. And Moshe doesn't want to go. And he comes up with 1,000 excuses and over until he finally says, please just send somebody else. And God says, you're going. And not only are you going, your brother's going to come to greet you. That's the first time we really hear about Aaron. And it's interesting, in the Midrash, if we look at source 27 for a second, the Midrash tells us, Amar Moshe said, Ad shelo amadati, until I showed up, haya Aaron achi mitznaveh lahem shvanim shana. Aaron was the leader of Am Yisrael for the last 80 years. Now, where does this idea come from? The idea comes from, I think, something within the Pshat, which is, first of all, by the fact that God then speaks to Aaron and says, go meet your brother, clearly shows that he was a prophet. He spoke to God, and it wasn't the first time, probably, or else you would have seen a little bit of surprise in Aaron, or maybe a disbelief. Number 2, when they get into Mitzrayim, what is the first thing he does for Moshe? He gathers all the Zakanim. I don't know about you, but a regular person can't just say, hey, Zakanim, could we all gather together to hear out my brother? You clearly have to be somebody who is respected, who the people would listen to even for a moment. And of course, the fact that he's chosen to be the sidekick of Moshe is, and why that gives Moshe any confidence is because, well, the people all know Aaron. The people all trust Aaron. The people have all been listening to Aaron. So if Aaron says you're good, they'll listen to you. If Aaron was a nobody, this wouldn't have worked at all. So whether or not he was the leader of the people or certainly had some sort of status in the people, the Midrash is telling us he was the leader. And of course, what happens, or what do you assume in a human world if you are the leader, and then you find out that that younger brother of yours who got to live in a palace for a while and then ran away and is nowhere to be seen, has no idea that he's possibly even Jewish to some extent and hasn't been living with us ever at all and has a whole life and children in a totally different place. But don't worry, he's coming back and he's going to save the Jewish people. The normal reaction would be one of jealousy, would be one of anger. And that's exactly what the Medrash says. Keep reading my Midrash. Amar Moshe, Moshe says to God, Achshav yikanes ani l'tchumo. I should come into his tchum. I should take over where he's the leader. Shalchi of my brother. Maybe yatzer. It'll be terrible. He'll be jealous. He'll be angry. Levichach lo hayam avakesh lalech. I don't want to go. So what does God respond in the Pshat of the Psukim, source 28? Not only is Aaron going to come, again, whether Aaron was the leader or he was just someone of significance, but if Aaron is being told by God, your brother's about to come and save the Jewish people, your younger brother, there's got to be, you think, a little bit of jealousy, a little bit of anger, a little bit of something. What does he say? Aaron's going to come, hu yotzei lekotecha v'reacha v'samach b'libo. Not the samach, he'll pretend with a fake smile on his face. So good to see you, right? No. Billy Bo. in his heart, he will genuinely be happy. That's very, very hard to do. That is against human nature. To be so happy, to step aside when someone else has kind of taken over that position, someone who's a stranger who is all of a sudden going to be greater than you, right? It's very, very hard to do. It's actually interesting. I don't know if any of you saw the movie The Prince of Egypt. Prince of Egypt? Okay, so it's like a cartoon version of these stories. And there are so many things with it if you ever watch it. It's a really fun game to play with your children, grandchildren, which is what is not pshat. So I played that with my brother, and I told him he could smack me every time it wasn't pshat. I was very black and blue by the end, so there's a lot of things that's not pshat. But almost everything is a midrash. Almost everything. It's actually, obviously, somebody who was some sort of Torah scholar made that movie, okay? There's one thing that's not pshat in the movie, and you know what that is? Aaron. They make Aaron a jealous, conniving older brother. He's actually the enemy of Moshe in the beginning of the story, and then as Paro gets meaner, Aaron gets nicer. He's the foil to Paro. And it always bothered me, where'd that come from? There's not a single midrash who says about Aaron. Like, this whole movie is really pretty on target, you know, with a lot of midrashim mixed in, but that. And I realized that the reason why is because it's a human movie, and it has to be believable. And to make Aaron someone who isn't jealous of Moshe is not believable. It's inhuman. But that is how the story went. That's Aaron. And I think that's the characteristic of Hey Shalom V'Radei Shalom. Because only someone who's so crazy to not want, to always want peace and to always be friendly and to always be nice, he could be the person who could say, oh, Moshe, you're just showing up now? Okay, sure, no worries. I'll step aside. I'll be your sidekick. I'll be your number two, and I will never step on your shoes. Only someone like that. And it reminds me to some extent of, I gave you in source 29, the other person that is praised in the Mishnah and Avot, which is Yonatan. Yonatan is the son of Shaul, right? Shaul is the king of the Jewish people. And even though we know, because we get the behind the scenes of Shmuel, who tells David that he's going to be king, they don't know that. And as time is passing on, David is becoming somebody who lives in their house more and more. He plays the harp, he plays the music for Shaul. And Yonatan, Shaul's oldest son, who is the heir to the throne, should get jealous. He should get upset by the relationship that is developing between Shaul and David, which in the beginning is very positive. He should be jealous when David kills the giant Goliath. He should. But what does Yonatan do? Takes off his coat, puts it on David, and says, I know you will be the next ruler of the Jewish people, and he's totally fine with it. Says the Mishnah in Avot, this is the definition of love, she'eno tluya b'davar, zu ahavat David v'Yonatan. It's abnormal, but this is the ultimate love that is not reliant on anything. David and Yonatan, who could step aside and say, I love you so much, I don't care that you're taking over the malchus from me, the kingdom from me. He's happy for David. This is what I see in Aaron and Moshe. Now, if I apply this to the story of Chet Egel, I actually think it makes a lot of sense. Because if Aaron stood up and said at Chet Egel, you know what, guys, I'm going to take over. Moshe's not here. I'll take over. Don't worry. You don't need an Egel. I'll step up as leadership. What might somebody think? Oh, Aaron's been waiting this entire time to take it back. He's really been jealous of Moshe this entire time, and now Moshe's missing, and Aaron's taking the opportunity. I'll take over the leadership again. And Aaron is saying to God, I can't do that. I can't let them feel it. So I have a good reason to kind of be like, no, Moshe's coming. Let's keep pushing it on. I have a good reason. Now, does something bad happen at the end? Yes. And maybe he did something wrong by doing that? Yes. But maybe it's understandable. And God understood. This is Aaron, the person who stepped aside for his brother, the person who loves his brother so much, who doesn't for a minute want anyone to think he's jealous of him or wants that position back, and therefore isn't standing up to the people maybe the way he should. And I find that hinted to so beautifully in this midrash that I gave you in source 30. That pasuk, V'reacha v'samach b'libo, Aaron will see you and he will be happy. Says that midrash there, Halev shesamach b'gedulach echav. Only the person who has a heart that can be so happy when his brother surpasses him and does so well, he yilavesh urim v'tumim. He deserves to be the Kohen Gadol and to wear the urim v'tumim. That's the trait that got Aaron there. And that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe this trait helps us understand what he did at Chet Egel, and maybe this trait makes it that God understood and maybe forgave him, and therefore didn't punish him the way we would have expected. But I want to give a second answer. And the second answer is, it is very possible to argue that when you are looking at somebody who sinned and they are not punished, that you can argue something we all believe in, which is, he did tshuva. Don't we all believe in tshuva? The tshuva doesn't necessarily be recorded in the text, but we could possibly argue Aaron did tshuva. Aaron felt really, really bad, and he did tshuva. And I think why that fits so beautifully, if you just look first of all at source 32 before source 31, the Medrash actually claims that. When God decides he's supposed to be Kohen Gadol, when he says the words, Kachat Aaron, so this Medrash is obviously assuming, as we saw in Rashi, the text is out of order, Chet Egel already happened. Shehaya b'libo shenitrachach b'dvar ha'egel, kishehu omer Kachat Aaron, utasha'a yada Moshe nitshkarav Aaron. When God said choose Aaron, Moshe knew, Aaron did tshuva, clearly, or else how would he have been chosen to be the Kohen Gadol? That was the signal. Because he got to be the Kohen Gadol, he clearly did tshuva. And why does that make sense? Look at source 31. What is the role, and I've said it already, but here's another pasuk to emphasize. The role of the Kohen Gadol, besides taking responsibility for himself, besides getting forgiveness for himself, is to get forgiveness, kol havanot b'nei Israel, that's kol pesheim v'chol chatzasam, to get forgiveness for all the Jewish people. But how can I have somebody who stands up and says, everybody, I represent tshuva, I represent God's forgiving us, if he didn't go through that process of doing something wrong, doing tshuva, and getting forgiven? The perfect person to be the representative of the person who gets us forgiveness for all of our sins is someone who himself was forgiven for his sins. He is that perfect person to be chosen. And therefore, maybe I can argue, privately, not needed to be repeated or shown to us in the text, but hinted to us in the text, by the fact that he does get to become the Kohen Gadol, he does get the role of getting tshuva for all of us, that Aaron did tshuva. So therefore, if I put this all together, I think we started with a question of fairness. Is God just when it comes to Aaron? Is God fair when it comes to Aaron? And I think we answered it in a lot of ways. Either we said, absolutely yes, Aaron was punished. He watched those around him suffer because of not stopping them from sinning. He didn't get to go into Eretz Yisrael. He loses his 2 sons. There's a rebellion against him, and maybe even becoming the Kohen Gadol was part of his punishment. Or we argued he was forgiven. Maybe because he was such a great person, this person who steps aside for his brother, has no jealousy, right? And we understand, therefore, why he didn't step up by Chet Egel. Or maybe because he just simply did tshuva. Obviously, if it was Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur time, we would end on a tshuva note. But since it is not, I want to take this in a little bit of a direction. You know, we started off by saying, normally bad things happen to bad people at the end. Good things happen to good, which is not always true. But it certainly inspires us to try to be as good as we can possibly be. We said that people are punished when they do something wrong, even great people, and that's true here as well. But sometimes, you know, we need a little bit of a bigger pump, a little bit of a nicer message to come out, which is as follows. Aaron messed up. Aaron he did something wrong. It wasn't the actual sin itself, but he did something wrong. And he was punished in who knows which way. We've now gone through a lot. But Aaron could have turned to Moshe and said, I'm out. I'm out. I messed up. I clearly did something wrong. Clearly people around me are dying. I clearly am not up to this. Moshe, go on without me. I'll step to the side. I'll become just a regular person. And you could go on and lead the Jewish people without me. But what do we see? Moshe and Aaron are together. Aaron stands by Moshe's side till the very, very end, and either accepts the role of Kohen Gadol or continues to act like the Kohen Gadol, either one, depending on the order, after Chet Egel. He could have said, I'm done. I can't do this. This is not for me. But he said, I'm going to keep going in my role. I'm going to elevate myself higher and higher. And I think for us it's a really nice message because there are always times that we mess up. We are human. We are going to mess up. There is not a possibility. I mean, maybe one of you never messed up, and I'd love to meet you. But we all mess up. We all do something wrong. But what's sometimes worse than the action that we did that's wrong is what we do after what we've done wrong, which is we kind of let it take us down. And what Aaron is teaching us is, yes, we can do something wrong, and we can then continue to work ourselves up. We can elevate ourselves afterwards. We can learn from our mistakes and move forward. And I think that is a very, very beautiful message, because everybody in Torah messes up too, just like we do. We are human, and that is how God made us. It's the question of what you do afterwards. And I think the fact that Aaron, who may have been punished, that he may have suffered over and over again, because maybe all of the above is the answer, he was punished a lot. But at the end of the day, Aaron is someone we remember Latova in such a beautiful way. We remember him as the person who got us forgiveness, as the Kohen Gadol, the person that his children forevermore got us forgiveness. We remember him as the Ohev Shalom, the Rodev Shalom, someone we're supposed to resemble, of loving people and trying to help people in all ways. We remember him Latova because he elevated himself that way. So too all of us should elevate ourselves even when we do something wrong, forgive ourselves, as I believe Aaron forgave himself, and continue to move forward to be productive and lead productive lives. Thank you very, very much.